Hey, coming up on Hands on Tech, I've got the Pixel Watch 2, Google's latest wearable. I'll give you a full review next.
This is TWiT.
I've got the Pixel Watch 2 on my wrist, and I have to kind of like preface and say that I've tried wearables many times, and I always have this like interesting experience with them. When I'm wearing them, I'm like, oh yeah, this is nice. And then when I'm done with the review, I might wear them for a couple of more days, and then I fall out of the habit, and then I don't go back to them, which has had me time and time again really ask myself, like, what is it about wearables that doesn't like catch me?
Yeah.
You know, because you wear your Apple Watch
every day
on a regular basis. And what is the like prime reason why?
Well, and I have to say, when the Apple Watch first came out, the first generation, which we call the Series 0, I did not. I would wear it once a week maybe.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the time I just didn't wear it because I just was not getting use out of it. It wasn't until Apple made some improvements to it that I started using it more often, and they really took it to the being the notifier on your wrist. Now it is just, most importantly, it's that I can get notifications on my wrist so that if my phone is somewhere else, that's fine. I don't have to carry my phone with me as much. But it has also become this health device that I do truly use. It's like the quantified self, and I can see, you did do some actions today. It is a device that lets me control music. I mean, so it is this satellite device that I do feel naked not wearing now because it has become so handy. But in the beginning, when it was more rough, I didn't see the value of it, and I didn't wear it every day.
I kind of went through this over the years, this thing where it was like the wearable allows me to not have to feel like I need to turn on my phone all the time because I get the notifications on my wrist. That's great. And I had that for a while. And then I was like, wait a minute. Now I'm just looking at my wrist all the time because every single little notification that comes through buzzes my wrist, and I feel like I need to look at it. So
that's the other thing.
I don't, I don't necessarily want to look at everything, and there are ways to carve that and, and tailor that and everything like that. And I start with this because I realize in my time with the Pixel Watch 2, I've been wearing it and using it for the last couple of weeks. I've given it a couple of weeks. I've really kind of found myself in a familiar place where I'm like, okay, I think when this review is done, I'm going to continue wearing it. And I think my curiosity is, because I've actually really enjoyed it, my curiosity is, will that last? Because, I'm going to have this watch for a while. How long am I going to continue wearing it? What are the reasons that I'm wearing it? And we can kind of talk a little bit about that. But let's start with the design, which I think is often kind of the differentiator for Pixel watches. Last year's, and this year's look almost identical from the face anyways. The classic look, that rounded display, has the really kind of curvy top, which I love from an aesthetic standpoint. I love the look of that.
It's very pretty.
However, I've also seen like Sherilyn Lowe from Engadget, hers, I believe it was her watch, got completely chewed up on the display, and she...
By what?
God, was it her? Was it the...
By
it was the Verge reviewer, and I can't remember her name off the top of my head. I'm so sorry. It wasn't Sherilyn. It was someone at the Verge, and she had no idea. She, later in the article just basically had to admit, like, I have no earthly clue how this happened, but it did. And that's always my fear with the Pixel Watch, is that glass is rounded, it's exposed, there's no like lip to protect it from brushing up against something.
Victoria Song.
There we go, Victoria. Apologies that I couldn't remember that off the top of my head. But at the same time, I love the look of it. So I think it's just something to be aware of. This could be the point of contact for something that ends up scratching it, or worse. And what we know about the Pixel Watch right now is that repairability is really not even an option. If you damage your Pixel Watch, you're replacing it. Like there's
so Google doesn't have a...
No, right now they're advising like, we can't really repair this thing.
What?
You've got to replace it. So that's a really big downside on this, especially in this day and age.
I didn't know that
of green, going green and making sure that repairability is a focus. That's not happening on the Pixel Watch 2. But if you can get over that, that's a negative right up at the top. The base of it used to be stainless steel. Now it is aluminum. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm covering it. Now it is aluminum. And actually, I'm just going to go ahead and take it off.
Hang on. Okay, I've got so many questions. I'll try to be quiet and let you keep going, but then I have so many questions.
Yeah, okay, we can get to those. So aluminum, not stainless steel anymore. I like stainless steel more than aluminum. I think from a durability standpoint, that might be an issue, especially given our said repairability issues. But they say, that cuts down on the weight. I didn't find the original Pixel Watch to be too heavy, so that's a little strange. Haptics, like when I've got it on my wrist and I'm moving around the little crown there, some really nice, like subtle but strong enough haptics. It doesn't feel cheap. And then I think one of the big kind of improvements with the Pixel Watch 2 is the sensor array. You've got the electrodermal sensor, the skin temperature, these 4 little dots around here. Those are all heart rate sensors. So instead of having just one that's drawing the heart rate while you're wearing it, it's 4. And I did find the heart rate sensor. Like obviously, I didn't have something to compare it directly to know what is the point of authority as far as that's concerned. But I loved that it was continuous. I loved, the watch face that I have would show me on an ongoing basis in this little readout there what my heart rate was. And that was one of the things I really enjoyed was, okay, I'm feeling a little stressed right now. And I could look down and I could see okay, it's a little elevated there. Mm-hmm. So I like that. I like that they've improved the sensor array, the heart rate sensor, like I said, very addictive. And it did kind of cue me to, at times, kind of slow down. They do have features within here where when it detects an elevated heart rate and it, the electrodermal, which is like your stress detection, those things would work hand in hand. And it would sometimes pop up a message to basically say, hey, you're a little stressed right now.
You okay, bro?
You have the ability in the app to kind of like log your mood as associated with those events. But it didn't happen all the time. Like I definitely had moments in the last couple of weeks that were very stressful and it didn't capture those.
Okay. And you felt it should have, is what you're saying.
I totally felt like it should have. So that was a little interesting. Does have sleep tracking, which I am not a fan of wearing a watch overnight in my sleep. I don't know about anybody else, but last night as one example here, let me go ahead and bring down the brightness just a little bit so that it isn't blasting you. So last night, apparently I slept less than I thought I did, 6 hours and 15 minutes. I usually like to shoot for 7. So apparently I laid up in bed at some point. But it breaks down the sleep stats throughout the night. It says I got a fair night of sleep, as you can see up there, which I would say is, as far as how I feel about my sleep last night, I guess that's pretty accurate. I feel like I got a fair night of sleep, but I'm just not going to if I'm not going to wear a watch during the day regularly, I'm really not going to wear it at night. So maybe the sleep training isn't for me. But as you saw there, that was actually the Fitbit app, and this does tie into the Fitbit app. So you get a lot of extra kind of functionality around Fitbit tracking, especially if you have the kind of the Fitbit premium service. It has a nice little summary, on my exercise days. This was Tuesdays. I do Pilates, and it was tracking my heart rate throughout. Gave me kind of an average BPM, how many calories burned during that time. All these stats that like. I know people really. Oh, and actually, I really do like this, the zone. So, that's depending on where my heart rate is at and how vigorously I'm exercising, it breaks it down into the zone for the heart rate. And obviously, with Pilates, it's a very you don't get in a high zone very often with Pilates, but I did with other exercises. I know that this stuff is really valuable to a lot of people. Is this valuable to you?
Not the zone stuff. I don't do bike. So biking is one of the places where zone and heart rate zones is important.
Yeah.
And then I think certain types of like speed running or mile run, it's either long distance or sprinting. That's where that becomes important. Mm-hmm. I don't do any of that. So no, the heart stuff in general, like the high heart rate or the low heart rate notifications, that stuff. Yes, I've had, because I think I've talked before, like when the way that I found out that I was gluten intolerant was because I ended up in the hospital due to some heart stuff, and they were about to do node ablation surgery. That's what they thought. They thought they needed to like burn my heart to fix it. And then it ended up being that it was just because I wasn't properly absorbing nutrients because of the gluten intolerance and blah, blah, blah. And then it fixed it. But during that period of time, my Apple Watch was this thing that I could look to say, okay, yeah, I've got that high heart rate thing going again. You know, what's going on? Yeah, exactly. And get a basis. And I was actually able to give that to my doctor, and that was helpful to my doctor at the time. So, yeah, I did the zone stuff. No, not for me. But I guess if I became a soul cycler or an Orange Theorist,
but I mean, using your wearable for fitness in general, is that something that you rely on? That's
only in the past about 4 months ago. I started working out regularly, and so I've really picked it up again with the workout stuff. So before that, anytime I would go, on a hike or on a long walk, then I would use it, but I didn't really use it. But yes, in the past 4 months, I've really gotten back into it. And I've done that in the past too, where I got really into it and then ended up not sticking with it. Yeah. So it is kind of it
takes a little bit of management. I mean, there is one thing that this does do reasonably well. Like it at times when it detected that I was like going for a walk or whatever, it took a little while for it to recognize it, but it'd be like, are you on a walk right now? Are you doing like an exercise walk right now? I'd be like, oh yeah, I would. I am right now. And I'd click okay. And it would start tracking it as an exercise event, but it would only track from that moment.
Right.
Oh, and I was already like 10 minutes in, and it didn't really not as part of that summary. It tracked everything.
Okay.
But as part of like the summary of like, this is your active exercise moment. It only seemed to track from the point that I clicked, yes, I'm walking right now. So it does things like that. It's looking out for when you are exercising. And I think that's one of the hurdles of these wearables for exercises. It's nice that it does these things, but sometimes you could, if you show the watch, like going in here to like trigger an exercise event, that I can get my summary. I can kind of look through there, but kind of how do you get started? You kind of have to maneuver a little bit. Oh, it's not one of those three. I could probably set those up as a preset, but then you're just talking about this huge list of different things. And it's about as easy as I imagine it could be for a wearable and a tiny screen, but sometimes that's enough friction for people to fall out of the habit. It's like, I just want to start working out,
Right, exactly. Yeah. On this watch, the orange button on the side, it's called an action button, and it's just, you can program for whatever. Okay. And I have it set up, but that's because the workout that I'm doing, it's functional strength training, is the same type of workout every time. So it just automatically starts the workout. Yeah. But yeah, if I was, sometimes I'm sprinting, sometimes I'm hiking, sometimes I'm doing Pilates, then that button wouldn't even be enough. And I would say that it's very comparable here as it is there in terms of, you pop into the app, you try to find the workout you want to do. I will say though, the Apple Watch is pretty good at recognizing the types of workouts that you're doing. One time I was playing around with like a rowing machine.
And it was like, are you rowing?
Are you rowing? Yeah.
Well, it's a certain motion.
Exactly.
Yeah, they've tested for all those things. Time. Absolutely. So, I think in general, the health stuff I know is going to be really helpful for some people. My wife has actually expressed interest in getting one of these because she's been meaning to get a wearable, and we're both, we're all on Android. I'm like, well, I think as far as the fitness wearables running Android, like, Google has made some really great improvements, I think, software-wise to this. Initially, I would probably recommend one of Samsung's Galaxy watches, Galaxy Wear watches. I think this is comparable from that feature set perspective. They've really improved with the integration with Fitbit and everything. They've really kind of built out some of the pain points around fitness. Now, which one is this?
This is the 6 Classic.
Oh, okay. So John Ashley just brought over the Samsung Watch Classic. And yeah, this looks super familiar.
Dark.
Very dark. A little bit larger. I mean, this also points out another shortcoming, I would say, of the Pixel Watch is that you only got one size. So if you've got a large wrist and you want a larger watch, this is the size that you got. Too bad. Samsung gives you more variability as far as that's concerned.
Did you mention the band and how it attaches and detaches?
No. I didn't mention it, but it's pretty, let's see here. So, oh yeah, that's right. So there's a little button right there. And I think that it is just Google's watch bands. So this is a proprietary band thing. And that's important to point out. A lot of the wearables. I think that's a feature when you can throw any.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
any sort of band on
this
there.
definitely looks like it could probably. Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
A little latch.
But this has the standard kind of 2-pin option.
Right.
Versus, I mean, Apple Watch is not that. You have to use their.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Google's following in Apple's footsteps by saying, hey, you know what? We can give you a custom kind of fit
to make it easier to put on and take off, because most of the time that's a cool way to do it with that watch, but most of the time you have to get a little tool and you put it into the springs and you pull them back and you do all this stuff, and so this is supposed to be kind of a better way to do it. And the one thing I'm curious if Google will hold to it. Do you know if the first version bands will fit the second version bands? So that's good.
The bands are interchangeable between the two, and that would be a big ding if they didn't do that.
Exactly. I'm glad Apple continues to do that as well.
Yeah. I know I'm going long, so I kind of have to wrap this up, but I do want to point out that battery life on this is excellent. I mean, as far as smartwatches are concerned, like I could wear this for a full 24 hours with sleep tracking, still wake up and have, what am I going to have? Like probably 15%. So, I'm going to have to charge it,
and then you hop in the shower.
But that's exactly what I did last night, and the other nights that I did sleep tracking. I woke up in the morning and wore it for a little bit and through my morning, and then as I was doing the shower and a little bit of my morning routine, I threw it on the charger, and it was on there for like an hour because I got lost in that world, and it was charged again. So if you do want to wear it, all day and all night, you can. And that was a big ding on last year's model. So, I mean, overall, I think that there are some trade-offs. I think the repairability gives me concern. The aluminum design versus the stainless steel combined with that, I think that's an issue. And I didn't even mention the price. The price is, $350. But at the same time, yes, the repairability is an issue, but I think that Google's doing on the right track with the software, and I think that's a really big thing, because last year the software was pretty subpar, and I think they've addressed a lot of that with Wear OS 4 on this device with the integration with Fitbit. I know there are a lot of people that know and understand and use Fitbit. Their ecosystem a lot more better and more than I do, but so I'm curious to continue wearing it and seeing how it goes over time.
To hear how it goes for you, and if you'll end up going, oh, I get it now. I want this. I want to.
Or I did the same dang thing I always do. I wore it for a handful of more times.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
Then I gave up.
How it turns out for you.
Yeah, but that's the Pixel Watch 2 by Google.
Listeners of this program get an ad-free version if they're members of Club TWiT. $7 a month gives you ad-free versions of all of our shows, plus membership in the Club TWiT Discord, a great clubhouse for TWiT listeners. And finally, the TWiT Plus feed with shows like Stacy's Book Club, The Untitled Linux Show, and more. Go to twit.tv/clubtwit, and thanks for your support.